Hello, everybody. Welcome into the NBA front office show. We've got a lot to talk about today. A lot of things still going on in the world of the NBA. We are just a few weeks away from everything really kicking off. Training camp starting up, preseason games, and all of that. We've got some stories to talk about today. DeAndre Jordan, him getting bought out, going to the Lakers. We'll talk a little Marc Gasol, what might happen with him. We'll also chat a bit about some unfortunate injuries, some other camp signings, things of that nature. A lot of things to get into today. And of course, a story about the Toronto Raptors as well that might give us a little bit of insight into what their future direction is. But first, quick reminder, guys, subscribe right here to the NBA Front Office YouTube channel. Our goal has been to hit 10,000. And as of this moment right now, we are less than 60 away from that. So if you haven't done it yet, hit the subscribe button, turn on notifications. We would appreciate it. Keith, how are you doing, man? Can you believe it? Less than 60 away from 10,000. Amazing.
Unbelievable, crazy. Wait, I didn't realize you and I had that many friends and family members
I didn't
that
either.
were willing to go out on a limb for us on YouTube. Yeah, no, that is awesome. So yeah, 50 some odd heroes. We need you to step up and help us get there to 10,000. This is great. We can't say enough about the sport. My buddy's checking in here. The old dog. It's almost dinner time, so he's going to start getting cranky here in a minute. But I know people love the puppy appearances.
That's right.
So yeah, but no, we love the support. Appreciate everybody there. Your support has allowed us to monetize this and start doing a little something for our hard work, which is great. So we're super excited about that as well. So thank you guys for that so much. I know a couple people posted. I don't mind watching the ads because I know you guys get a little something, and thank you for that. That is very much appreciated.
Yes.
By both Trevor and I. So, but yeah, a lot of stuff still going on. And it's not all just these minor camp signings. There's still some big names moving on. So we'll start with DeAndre Jordan, officially waived by the Nets. Kind of on the sly a couple days ago.
By the Pistons.
They did it by the Pistons. Sorry, yeah. See, look at that. That's
I
just
got
some
you.
messed
I
up
got
here.
you.
Yeah, you got me. So yeah, by the Pistons after the trade from the Nets. So yeah, the Pistons let him go on Tuesday, so he's going to clear waivers today, Thursday when we're recording this, in about 8 minutes. Actually, it gives you a sense of what time it is here on the East Coast where we're recording. So he'll clear waivers. It's expected that later in today, again Thursday, as we're recording this, the Lakers will announce that they're signing him. But we all knew that part was going to happen. The interesting part is he gave back $4 million in his buyout. About $2 million each year is about the best way to think of that. So reduced his cap hit by about $2 million for the Pistons. So it'll be on the Pistons books for about $7.8 million, then a little over $7 million for the second year of that. So this year and next year, a little bit more dead money. Interesting tidbit before we get into too much of the Jordan stuff. The Pistons have more dead money on their books this year than the Oklahoma City Thunder have in guaranteed player salary.
That sounds made up. That can't be real.
Yeah, it's 100% real.
Oh my gosh.
Yep.
That's unbelievable.
Crazy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
I can give you it's 45.5 million in dead money on the Pistons books against 44.1 million in actual guaranteed player salary on the Thunder books for players who are currently on the roster. Now the Thunders have a good chunk of dead money because of Kemba Walker and all that.
Right.
But talking just the guys on the roster right now, as of today, guaranteed money 44.1 against 45.5 dead money for the Pistons.
That is incredible. That doesn't sound real that could even possibly happen, and yet yeah. Here we are. But let's talk about
interesting.
that real quick.
Well, one thing on that too, interesting that Troy Weaver came from OKC, Sam Presti with OKC, two teams rebuilding, kind of ships passing in the night here. Detroit's maybe kind of on their way back up. OKC looks like they're still in that teardown process, but yeah. But let's get into DeAndre Jordan.
So DeAndre Jordan, he gives back $4 million, and I guess what I want to get into here is a lot of people see these situations, and I'm going to use Rajon Rondo as the example because that's a recent one. We see the scenario where the player gives back exactly what they're going to get from their new team. So for the player, the net dollar amount is zero. They lose nothing. Why is it that we see some guys like a DeAndre Jordan where they actually have to come out of pocket? Kemba Walker, same thing. We see this with some of these bigger contracts. Is it just a contract size thing? Is it one agent is better at negotiating than another? How do we quantify that? Why we see some players have to give back more than others do?
Yeah, that's a good question. A little bit of both. Is really the answer there. I think with Walker in Blake Griffin last year, that's a truly a size of the contract thing where those guys were $30 million plus players, and of course, if they're gonna get freedom from the team, that they're gonna have to give back a pretty big chunk to get free. Now Jordan, 2 years, 9.8 million, then it was a little over 9 million or so. He's only going to make his actual salary this year will be about 2.6 million.
Mm-hmm.
He'll be on the Lakers books for a cap hit of 1.7. But 2.6 will be what he'll actually make. That is, yeah, that's a $1 million difference between the hit and the what he'll make, about 1.4 million off of what he gave up total. So to me, that says he just knows, hey, I don't want to be on the Pistons. I want to play at the end of my career and be on a team that can really win. Yeah. And I'm going to go there. And for a guy like Rondo, he's probably thinking, I maybe have a couple more options to go to places. So let's be smart about how we handle this going forward versus I just want to get free and get out of here. So that there's a lot of things that factor into those types of buyouts.
And every situation is going to be different, but it is just interesting to see some guys who come out of pocket and then other guys they don't. They wind up at a net of zero in terms of money that they gave up and whatnot. But DeAndre Jordan joins the Lakers. I know both of us have had plenty of questions. Like I don't think there's a lot of Lakers fans that are just fist pumping right now saying, yes, this is it. Yeah. Championship 18 is on the way. And like DeAndre Jordan, it's a little bit of a questionable fit. We saw he looked pretty run down with the Brooklyn Nets last season, and defensively they were actually better with him off the floor than they were with him on, but he does still fit that archetype of the more modern big that just sets screens, rolls hard to the rim, rebound, block shots, that sort of thing. What do you think about this landing spot for he's actually one of the younger players on the team now, which maybe that's part of this. It was to bring their average age down just a little bit. You go bring in a 33-year-old, I believe, DeAndre Jordan.
Yeah, Town Horton Tucker needed somebody to hang out with.
That's right.
to go to bed early with and those kind of things, I guess. When the older guys hang out at night. The fit. Whatever it is, what it is. I think it's. I don't fully understand why the Lakers needed this, and we start to wonder: is something going on with Marc Gasol that we don't really know about to this point? And Marc Gasol, it seems like there's been mixed reporting on, is he going to come back? Is he going to play? Is he going to play in the United States? Is he going to go play overseas next year or something like that? As it stands right now, he's on the Lakers books at 2.7 million. Sorry, I have the puppy was at my feet here. So we got all sorts of circus happening here in the Smith house. That's what happens at 5 p.m. Eastern here. Not only is it the close of business for the NBA, but it's feeding time for the Smith dogs.
Doggy dinner time. That's right.
There it is. So, all right, they're all cleared out now. So hopefully everything will calm down. But yeah, so Gasol, 2.7 million that he's on the Lakers books for. What becomes of that? That's the question. Now, if he out and out retires and says, I'm done, that could get wiped off the Lakers books. It's still not going to do anything for them. They're so far over the cap that it doesn't really matter. It would lower their tax a little bit, but that's whatever at this point. So it becomes a situation of more, is he going to be on the team or not, versus anything to really do with the cap wise? Because let's face it, none of us are the Bus family. We're not writing the tax bill check to the NBA.
So Marcus, I mean, there's been talk that maybe he'd like to go finish his career in Spain. So as far as the cap goes and everything, we know, look, if Marc Gasol leaves, bottom line, Lakers get another roster spot to use. Yeah, okay? That's just from the roster perspective. But from the cap perspective, if Marc Gasol says, I'm out, I don't want to play here anymore, how do you travel down that path? How do you navigate that situation?
Yeah, it becomes two. There's two ways. He could full on retire and
Mhm.
void his contract, and then the Lakers are off the hook. That rarely happens. It tends to go the other way
Yeah.
of we don't really want you anymore. You're probably don't want to be here anymore. We're just going to waive you. We'll eat the 2.7
Mhm.
million hit, and off we go. Thanks for your years of service, I guess, or year of
Year.
service
Yeah.
in this
Right.
case. But yeah, that kind of that tends to be the more likely path that happens. Good comp for this is when Rasheed Wallace retired from the Celtics. Now, several years ago, God, longer ago than I even want to admit to thinking that that actually happened. But he retired, but then he didn't officially retire, but it was I'm not going to play, and the Celtics just waived him and ate the cap hit. The Spurs did that on the last year of Tim Duncan with the idea there of being, hey, this is more of a bonus payment to you for
Mhm.
everything you did for us as a franchise. So my guess is if it comes down to it, they'll just waive him and they'll eat the 2.7 and off we'll go.
So we that's probably the way things go there. Obviously, they could explore a trade and see if maybe there was a
Sure.
if Gasol said, you know what, I want to stay in the NBA. I don't want to be here. Can you help me out and get me somewhere? I'm sure you could find maybe a landing spot or something like that could be worked out. But I think most likely, if we do see a parting of the ways, and to me, the DeAndre Jordan signing suggests that's what's coming next. I can't imagine them going into the season with three true pure centers on the roster where they can't play any other position. It's not like they're a 4 or 5 combo.
Yeah.
Three guys who can only play center, and then plus you've got Anthony Davis in the mix. I would be a bit surprised if they went into the season with all three of those guys on the roster. So we'll have to wait
Agreed.
and see what happens here with Marc Gasol and how the Lakers opt to handle this. But again, it does appear DeAndre Jordan. By the way, the Lakers have a press conference 1 hour from now, at this moment right now, as we're recording, and that is most likely to announce DeAndre Jordan's arrival.
Yeah.
Let's,
Hey, one more thing on Marc Gasol real
yeah.
quick. Just so people are aware too, because they signed him using the minimum exception last
Hmm.
year, even though it was a 2-year contract, so he didn't count for the 2-year minimum. He got counted at the 10-year minimum. He does qualify to be traded under the minimum exception trade rules, which essentially means any team that is not hard capped could trade for him for essentially nothing. They could send back a top 55 protected pick to the Lakers or draft rights to a player, or just some minor thing there. So yeah, so that's where that one will probably go. If there's a trade, that's how he'll be acquired. So it just makes it a lot easier to move him via trade because the
Hmm.
team doesn't need to take him into an exception or that, despite the fact that he's at the 2.7 instead of the 1.7 million veteran minimum for this year amount. Just the little cap mechanics there here on the front office show because that's what we do.
And that's good to note too for anybody who's thinking, oh, they could trade Marc Gasol and maybe actually get something. They're not going to get something for him. The Lakers aren't going
No,
to get something if they
absolutely not.
if they trade him. It will be more of a situation. Say, hey, where is it that you want to play? How can we help you get someplace? Then, oh man, we got to get top dollar for this guy. No, they're not. They're gonna do
Yeah,
right by Gasol if he says he really wants to stay in the NBA and go somewhere else, or at
yep,
least that's the path I think we'll travel
absolutely.
down. Another center. Jalil Okafor waived, so now out on the market. At one point, if you remember the draft years ago, was one of the top players coming in, and now he is once again a free agent waived by the Brooklyn Nets. What do you think, Keith? You think he gets picked up somewhere?
I do. I don't know that'll be immediate. I think that might be one where a team suffers an injury up front or
Hmm.
somebody isn't quite ready to play or something along those lines. I think they'll bring him in and have him kind of come in and play a role. Still does a thing. Still can score on second units
Hmm.
as a second unit big man. He's still shown that. He is fine as a backup center for the minimum. So we'll see at some point. I think we'll see him resurface eventually. It just probably won't be immediately. It'll probably be, let's say, a month or so from now when we're towards the end of training camp, something like that. I still believe in Jalil Okafor's ability as a second unit scoring big.
And like you said, injuries do happen. Just ask the Baltimore Ravens. Oh, absolutely brutal what's going on with them. One thing after another after
Yeah,
another.
two torn
Uh,
ACLs in the same practice,
in the same practice today with Gus Edwards
back
and
to
Marcus
back
Peters.
plays.
Already lost J.K. Dobbins, already lost Justice Hill. Unbelievable football back tonight, though. Hey, so at least we got that. But
This is part of
unfortunately,
why I no longer play fantasy football because there's so little joy and so much pain.
there really is. I was scrambling all afternoon looking at my fantasy rosters, trying to figure out what to do at this point. But you know what? The NFL is not the only place you see injuries. The NBA, of course, as well. And gosh, I hate stories like this. But Edmund Sumner for the Indiana
Yeah.
Pacers, torn Achilles. That's it. Season over. It's going to take at least a year probably to try to come back from that. Shot almost 40% from three last season, and it looked like the Pacers were going to lean on him a little bit more this coming season.
Yep.
Like he was finally getting things going, and unfortunately, the season is over already due to a torn Achilles. I
Yeah,
hate
and
stories like
this
this, Keith.
brutal. And this is a he's on the last year of his contract,
Yeah.
only 2.3 million. He's never made all that much money to this point, so he's probably going to have to take a prove it deal with somebody next season, going in to prove that he's healthy and going into camp and those kind of things. And this is, like you said, this is a guy who was finally getting his real chance and starting to figure things out. He's only 25. He's going to turn 26 a few months from now. So pretty rough. And if you remember back, Edmund Sumner missed a lot of his rookie year because he was coming off a torn ACL that was suffered at Xavier before he got to the NBA. Then he came into the NBA and was able to played extensively in the G League at first. He was on a two. I believe, if I have this correct, he was the first player to sign a 2-year, two-way contract.
Ooh,
And
good
the
trivia question
Pacers
there.
did that with the idea to have him rehab that first year with them. He played some in the G League, played, I believe it was on the last day of the regular season for the Pacers in the 2017-18 season. He got into a game, and if I don't remember what he did, might have made a couple shots. He didn't play much,
Mhm.
but that was kind of the jumping off point for him. Then the next year he played well, came off of the two-way, signed a long-term contract with the Pacers, and now we're into to a spot where his future is very unknown, and that's a blow for the Pacers too,
Mhm.
because their wing depth is kind of questionable. We talked a couple episodes back about
T.J.
TJ
Warren.
Warren,
Yeah.
still dealing with some injuries there. They've got Chris Duarte, who they really like, their first round pick, Torrey Craig, who they signed. They still have Karis LeVert. It sounds like Jeremy Lamb they were gonna look to trade. Maybe this changes things on that front.
Maybe.
We'll see. But yeah, it's definitely a blow for this Pacers team.
And Jeremy Lamb has had injury issues himself, where a lot of teams, the
Yeah.
rumor was a lot of teams that were interested in trading for him wanted to hear or see, him out on the floor first and prove like, hey,
Yeah.
this guy's actually healthy. So tough blow for the Pacers. Obviously not the thing that you like to see this time of year or ever really,
Definitely
but
not.
especially right before training camp starts up. That's rough. Masai Ujiri, give us a little bit of insight into what
Yeah.
the Raptors are planning on doing. Says they are not a team of now. Says that there is going to be some rough times ahead, but they are building for the future. So we knew fairly certainly that the Raptors were more looking towards the future from here, but this is now confirmation from the top that, hey, this is a team that it's not necessarily worried about how they do this year. It's about building and about developing, and that may inform us of what we should expect from them for the rest of the season in terms of their activities on the trade market, in terms of maybe
Yep.
signing players that get bought out, things of that nature. It tells us that the Raptors are very much in a rebuild.
Now, look, Masai Ujiri knows more about basketball than I'll ever know, so I'm not gonna say he's wrong. But I don't know that I fully buy this.
Hmm.
This team has enough talent to
They do.
be in the play-in mix. Now, the question is that what they want? Do they want to be in the play-in mix, or are they looking at it and saying, "Meh, not really what we want to do"? It's couple of their moves maybe went a little counter to that. The re-signing of Gary Trent, re-signing
Hmm.
of Kem Birch. So I wonder if this is more, hey, let's not think home court advantage, title contender. Let's reset expectations to playoff team, battling for a playoff spot, those kind of things. That's where the expectation should be. And I think that's fair if that's what he's doing. They're certainly not a Pistons
Sure.
Magic group of they're several years away. It does make me wonder now what happens with a guy like Goran Dragic. They haven't traded him yet.
Hmm.
That was a lot of the expectation was that he was going to get moved along. He basically came out and said, "I don't really want to be there." And then he tried to walk that back, but we all know how that goes.
Too late.
But yeah, exactly. But he did also say he's not doing a buyout either. He's not giving back
Mhm.
any money. Now, it's easy to say that in August, July, September. What happens when you get to November, December, January, February, you're not traded.
Mhm.
Then is it all right? Now I'll give back a little bit of money to go join a contender. We all know contenders would line up to add Goran Dragic because he still can really play. But yeah, I think it's a reset season for the Raptors in a lot of ways. But I just can't see this team being terrible. I think they've got far too much talent to be truly awful.
And that's why this statement has some significance, right? Because we've been looking at this team saying, well, what are they? Are they fully committing to a rebuild? Are they going for it? Are
Yeah.
they going to try to make the playoffs? Are they going to be making more win now moves? And Messiah is at least saying, hey, this isn't a team of now. We're not really a win now team. But I think you're right. I think there's too much talent here. I mean, certainly it's you look at Orlando's roster and you can say, okay, it's obvious what they're doing.
Yeah.
Toronto, that's not so much the case. And
Yeah.
so I think that Messiah at least says that's how we're going to be leaning. We're going to be looking at things building for the future. But I do think you're right. Like there's a real chance here that they could find themselves at least in the play-in tournament. Who knows? They didn't play in Toronto last year. Like that.
Yeah.
So there's this kind of like negative cloud around the team where people think, oh, they're just not that good anymore. I think they still can be good, especially when they have
I
actual
agree.
real home games. But
Yep.
at least it gives us some insight into Masai's thinking that it's more the future than right now.
Yeah, and one thing this team doesn't have is a lot of depth. Their starting group is pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
They've got a couple guys coming off the bench who aren't bad, and then after that, it's a lot of more lottery ticket guys where maybe this guy pops and this guy looks pretty good. Clearly, Scotty Barnes is going to need time to
Mm-hmm.
develop as their first round pick this past year. So yeah, my guess is this is just rather than have it be we're home, we're going to be in Toronto all season, and here we go, we're back, and all this stuff. This is probably an expectation setting exercise by Masai more than anything. And what if nothing else, what he's done now is he's taken pressure off his team
Yeah.
because now he can basically say, "Hey, don't flip out if this team is under 500 at Christmas. Like this is where we expect to be and those kind of things." And I think that that's good work by a good leader of an organization to kind of let's reset expectations a little bit here for everybody as a whole. But yeah, like I said before, they're not going to be absolutely awful unless they really start trading players and selling off pieces.
And speaking of a team that is definitely in rebuild mode, we talked about the Orlando Magic. They do sign Etwan Moore, solid
Yeah.
shooter to bring in, veteran guard. You do need some guys who can help show the youngsters, the path forward. So solid signing for the Orlando Magic.
It's more about that last part
Yeah.
than anything he's going to do on the court. Because if you look at it with the Magic, they've got Jalen Suggs, their first round pick this year, Cole Anthony, last year's first round pick. They have RJ Hampton, who was a first round pick in 2020 that they acquired in the Aaron Gordon trade. They also have Markel Fultz will be back eventually from injury. So a lot of young guards in that group there. And this is a guy who can come in and just kind of help them. To help shepherd them along. He's going into his 11th season now, so this is somebody who I think will really help this Magic team. That was part of what the role that they hoped Michael Carter Williams would play, but now he's hurt, and it's just a little harder for a guy who's hurt to be that voice, whether it be in practices or in the locker room and those kind of things, because those guys aren't around quite as much. This is also, as an aside to this, this is why they're not in a super huge rush to trade Terrence Ross. This is why they signed Robin Lopez. The Magic very much believe, and this has been Jeff Waldman's point, even going back to, if you remember, a few few years back, in his first offseason, they added Aaron Aflalo and Maurice
Oh yeah.
Spates
Mm-hmm.
to a team that wasn't very good. And the thought process was we need some veterans who can show these younger guys the way. And then when the Magic got back into being a playoff team for a couple years in a row, they openly said, yeah, having that year with the Aflalo and Spates who've been there, done that, helped show us some of the things that we needed. So that's why I do think eventually they'll move Terrence Ross. Maybe Robin Lopez gets
Mm-hmm.
traded if a team needs big help down the line. But Lopez is there to show Carter and Bamba what to do, really to beat on them every day in practice and
To
make
go to
those
Disney
guys
World.
better. Yeah, go to Disney World, absolutely. Which was he did his introductory press conference just yesterday, and that was kind of mentioned. But then yeah, and then you've also got Terrence Ross there because it's he's going to do that for the Wings. So so that is where we're at with that too. So we're in a position here in Orlando where it's they've added these veteran guys. Their impact on court may not be as much as it is off the court and in the locker room.
All right, and then we've got Chris Paul. Little statement here
Yeah.
saying that it was easy to sign with the Suns. Jeff Zilgett reporting that. So Chris Paul said it was easy to make that choice to re-sign with the Suns. Obviously, he opted out. Remember, this was like a foregone conclusion. Chris Paul is opting into the final year of his deal, and then turns out Chris Paul is still really good, even though he's well into his 30. I think he's 36 now. So he opts out, signs a new deal with the Phoenix Suns, and says that was an easy decision. And I agree. Look, the Suns, they made it all the way to the NBA Finals last year. Chris Paul got a nice long-term deal with them. Now, we have talked about this on this show before, that not all of that deal is guaranteed. But still, it seems like this was a no-brainer. I don't think there were many other options out there for Chris Paul, certainly not ones that were going to pay him what the Suns paid him, while giving him the opportunity to continue winning through the end of his career.
Yeah, and he mentioned the basketball aspect was big for him, but being close to his family, that's as close as he can get to them without being on the Clippers or the Lakers, and that wasn't going to happen for a number of reasons. And then he mentioned, I thought this quote was a good one, and I think this is good. The thing I'm looking forward to now is our approach to the everyday. You don't start the season and get to automatically end up at the finals again. It's another building process, and I'm excited about going through this experience with these guys because I went as far in the playoffs as I've ever been. We'll be on this journey of something new together, and I think that's important. It's everything resets, right? So they're not going to be the cute upstart Suns this year. Now people know that they're really good, and teams are going to be gunning for him. So that is I think Chris Paul's the right kind of guy you want to have there because if they come out and any of their young guys think like we're here now, we're established, you better believe Chris Paul is going to be in their ear telling them that they're not nearly as good as they think they are.
Yeah, and that's look, I think it's going to be a new challenge for the Suns to now deal with having a little bit of a target on their backs now that they made it all the way to the NBA Finals, and Chris Paul is a guy who I think can help them do just that. Finally, Kevin Pangos to the Cavs signs one of the last deals. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, Kevin Pangos has been one of the top point guards in Europe for about 5 or 6 years now. And every year there's a rumor that he is going to come over to the NBA, and then it never happens. He had not come over. He played Summer League in 2015, 16, and 17 with 3 different teams, Dallas, Atlanta, and Washington. Always played pretty well. And the first Summer League was a little rough for him, but the other 2, he was pretty good. If people here stateside remember the name, it's because he was on a bunch of good Gonzaga teams for 4 years. He was a 4-year starter at Gonzaga. He came right in as their starting point guard and started at point guard for them for 4 years. But the last few years overseas, he's really developed into one of the top point guards. He was all EuroLeague first team last year. Over there, he's all EuroLeague second team a couple years ago. He made the Euro Cup second team 1 year there. So he's also played for Team Canada on occasion on the international level. But last year, just to give you a sense of what this guy can do, he was for Zenit St. Petersburg, 65 total games, 13 points per game, 6.7 assists. And I know those might not sound like crazy eye-popping numbers, but 6.7 assists in Europe is a
Yeah.
huge number. They don't give out they do not give out the assists where you pass the ball, the guy takes 3 jab steps, 4 dribbles, and lays it in. You don't get an assist for that in Europe. It has to directly lead to the shot. Maybe 1 or 2 dribbles if it's like on the fast break or something like that. But yeah, so those are really good numbers, and he's also become a very good shooter. Shot 40% from 3 last year, 45% overall. So interesting for the Cavs. We'll see. That's a tough guard rotation to crack because they've got Darius Garland. Colin Sexton can still play the 1, some 2, and they added Ricky Rubio. So Pangos comes in clearly as the 3rd point guard in that group, but that could free them up if they wanted to move Rubio later in the year. That team still seems pretty weak on wings, so we'll see. With that one, and then news broke while we were recording. Not the major here, but Patrick Patterson, veteran, he'd been with the Clippers the last couple of years, signed a training camp deal with the Portland Trailblazers.
Okay.
So Portland's bringing in some guys for the end of that bench. We'll see if any of them pop and make it. This is for our Lakers listening audience and viewing audience. They are. This is like what the Lakers did with Dwight Howard the first time around. He was on a non-guaranteed camp deal, made the team, and then what happens is that converts into a standard non-guarantee deal. But until they're actually on the roster, it doesn't count against the tax or anything like that. So that's another veteran addition to the Blazers bench.
All right. So Blazers making a move there and adding somebody. Maybe he winds up sticking. And again, we do expect that, just to kind of bring things full circle, DeAndre Jordan probably going to be announced with the Lakers here in, probably by the time we publish this thing, he will be a Los Angeles Laker. Keith, actually for a show where earlier today we were talking about how there's not a ton going on in the NBA, and then we started digging and we're like, there actually is some stuff here, some real stuff to dig into. So good stuff.
Plus, I just think we're really good at this.
That's what it is.
We can carve out these stories like nothing else.
Look at that confidence.
Yeah, hopefully this continues for about 2 more weeks to get us to training camp.
That's right. And we are going to still continue doing some preview and review videos. So we've got those coming up as well. Make sure you do subscribe. Again, we are just short of our 10,000 subscriber goal right now. So make sure you subscribe. Don't forget to turn on those notifications. And of course, like this video. Until next time, everybody, stay safe and see you.